Hey, Wendy here. Welcome to another episode of Wild and Precious Conversations. Today's theme is what a week I've had. Sorry. Today, I've had a series of technical difficulties that are humorous, I suppose. Um, I am leading up to a really important conversation that will probably take place in the next couple of weeks. And the broad theme of that conversation is potentially summed up in what Arthur Brooks stated in a podcast episode that I heard him in a week ago or so, where he basically said that we ought to love humans, use things, and worship the divine. And I believe that what he was talking about there was that we really ought not to have transactional relationships with either the divine or humans. You know, in other words, we should not be using the divine or humans. And I think, honestly, we all have done it, uh, where we either say, oh, the universe or God or whatever. We conceptualize that to be, if I do X, Y, and Z good things, hopefully this will happen. And that's not really what worshiping is all about. In terms of using humans, certainly, again, we've all been there. This isn't something that should sound really weird or foreign to us. We all know that using people is wrong and bad. And at the same time, we get into transactional relationships with humans all the time, if we're honest. Or we're tempted to. And then as far as using things, I think the key there is that we should not love things or worship things. And we also should not worship people, as in celebrities or whatever else, whoever else. Anyway, that basic bullet pointed conceptualization of how we ought to live our lives says so much and leads me into this very short monologue that's basically a bit of a riff on this week's newsletter, which then turned into an essay that will be on, I believe, on Trend Privé magazine shortly, and riffs on the idea of Ubuntu, which I am extremely hesitant and use with the greatest humility. Again, it seems to be a great word to sum up what I'm trying to conceptualize. And at the same time, I don't think I'd feel comfortable using this word, except that the late Anglican Archbishop Desmond Tutu kind of gifted it, I think, to the wider world in a series of interviews and videos and etc. conversations. So with that, I'm using the word. I do think it's important for us right now to understand that we're in this really interesting time. I believe that there are very few people out there who are in positions of power, either in the corporate world or the political sphere, who unfortunately have abdicated their role as ethical leaders and are instead, unfortunately, using their power in order to just get kind of really, really rich fast for their own personal gain, and I guess potentially for their close immediate family. And that's really unfortunate. And while they're doing this, and again, that crosses political parties, it crosses national boundaries. I really can't think of a geographical area or political area. I can't think of a place that is immune to this. But again, it's only a small percentage of the population. These tend to be people that are extraordinarily rich and powerful, and there just aren't that many of them. there just aren't that many of them. And I believe they also can redeem themselves, certainly. But I just want to emphasize there's just a small percentage of the population that is exerting a lot of effort to trying to get the vast majority of humanity to be at each other's throats. And I find that really unfortunate. I mean, before you think that you're immune, for God's sake, the Prime Minister of Iceland, which I think most of us consider to be an extraordinarily pure and pristine and lovely country, or maybe it's just me, the Prime Minister of Iceland is implicated. So no one, there's no area of the world, I don't think, where you can go, well, not my group. Yes, your group can also contain a few people who are really having a hard time with ethics right now. In any case, for all of the rest of us, this video audio essay is for you. After I wrote the newsletter Monday morning, I had the opportunity to take a walk in the woods, snowy woods, at dusk. And at that time, this is where this essay takes place. So thank you for listening. It's snowing lightly, and the sun's last glow is obscured by mist. My teenager is practicing cello in a small, quaint cabin nearby, while I meander in the woods and along the lakefront, stopping briefly on the dock to see if I can see any stars emerging. As I wander, I'm listening to a book by Ian McGilchrist called The Master and His Emissary. And it's in turns riveting and excruciatingly boring as he describes the dire straits we're in. Pre-cello lesson, I've been nursing one of Brene Brown's vulnerability hangovers. So bad that all I have wanted to do is dig a deep pit, crawl into it, and hide. Of course, my better senses have prevailed, and the ground is still frozen here, so here I am, strolling in these woods as I wait for my progeny to finish. As I hang my head back, my eyes searching for that first star, which I'm determined should be visible through the light fog, my ears register this. The philosopher Gabriel Montel speaks of the difficulty of maintaining one's dignity as a unique individual subject in a world where a combination of the hubris of science and the drive of technology blots out the awe-inspiring business of conscious human existence. I briefly lose my balance. Science and technology rear their ugly heads again. Or is it hubris and drive? A few days prior, and I am bungling as I help with the tech in my ongoing Cultivating Humility class. The past couple years seem to have been spent being admonished to head into the woods, value my fellow humans more, and be kind. Here I am, taking a year-long course called Cultivating Humility. Being the consummate good citizen, I'm ticking off all the boxes. At the same time, I find myself racked with guilt and angst. Zoom meeting after Zoom meeting. Days isolated and alone in my home where I find myself talking to my cats a bit more often than is likely healthy. Although this last bit likely will keep me from undue hubris anytime soon. It definitely reminds me of the lack of conscious human existence in my life. We are told to be kind and then given herculean constraints that make kindness nearly impossible. We are told to head into nature at the same time that mountaintops are removed and placed into formerly pristine valleys. We are told how crucial it is to have a supportive group of friends and family, and then, well, you know. I believe that collectively we, the hoi polloi, the great unwashed masses, and that's almost all of us, we need to make a decision to turn toward what is good and right and beautiful and honorable and just. And even when we want to turn away just for a moment, we need to shore up all our inner strength and steadfastly remain facing that light. Now, what on earth is the word for that? Someone mentioned the Nguni word Ubuntu this week. In fact, it was someone in my Cultivating Humility course. At first, I thought, am I bold enough to use a word from a culture I know little about, potentially out of context? And then I remembered the late Anglican Archbishop Desmond Tutu and felt that if he shares the concept with the world, I can humbly offer it as well. So Ubuntu, according to Desmond Tutu, means that my humanity is caught up, is inextricably bound up in yours. I'd like you to consider, what if we, all of us, the hoi polloi, the great unwashed, what if all of us who dare to stay connected to each other, even as those who admonish us to do so effectively try to rip us apart, what if we dared? What if we dared to remain truly kind to each other, the masses, the vast majority of humanity who's not a billionaire? I mean, I don't want to be, there's probably a lot of lovely billionaires as well. But those of us who are not in power, and again, there are lots of people who are in power who are lovely. But what if we dared to stay connected to each other? To do unseen and unheralded selfless acts for each other? What if we danced daily, played music loudly, listened more? And what if we listened to our odd co-worker, not Fox or MSNBC or whichever corporate entity is on our screens? What if we listened to our ranting uncle? Again, nota bene, I do not have a ranting uncle. Not at all. Just hypothetically. Our crazy neighbor. And again, I don't have a crazy neighbor. I probably am the crazy neighbor. But you get the idea. And not listen just to get enough information in order to change those people's minds so that they also agree with whatever screen is favored on our own devices. But listened, just listened, so that the other feels heard, feels seen. That's my ask this week. On the heels of that sort of moonlit woods meandering, I finished my next course in my latest series, and this is a series of online free graduate level courses in the Bible by something called, I think they've called themselves Bible Classroom. It's the person who's heralding this is Dr. Tim Mackey, if you care to look it up. And here, I promise, I'm not trying to convert you. In fact, I honor whatever religious or spiritual background you have and wherever you're coming from. I would say that our world right now is in great need of us embracing a spiritual background, having the sacred front and center in our lives. That said, the end of the last course that I took, which was on heaven and earth, if I could sum it up in one word, I would say, or one sentence, I would say that I learned that God, in the beginning, created beauty out of chaos, and that his one great desire is that we co-create, partner with him in creating beauty out of chaos. That seems to me to be an honorable and good and just course of action. So I'd like to offer it. So, if you're listening to this on a podcast platform, I would humbly ask you to rate, review, subscribe, share. Currently, I'm definitely preferring Google for my podcasts, but wherever you listen to them, please rate, review, subscribe, and share. Of course, you can just listen as well on Substack, if you're part of the email list, and that's lovely. I do think, though, it's easier to listen on a podcasting platform. If you're here on YouTube, welcome. I think I have 4 subscribers. I love it on YouTube. What else? And so, yeah, you can also check me out on the website, which is Underbelly, UNDERBEL.li. And please feel free to sign up for the Monday morning newsletter, this podcast, or whatever else. Thank you so much, and I look forward to hearing from you. Have a great week.